Hey everyone, new accessory in the shop today. This is from Festool. This is part of the clean tech line, so related to dust collection and extraction. It is the drilling dust nozzle. So it is the D27 BSD. Also, Festool always numbers their products with these 6-digit numbers. So it's a 500483. There's one of them in here. This is primarily meant for their hammer drills and their dust extractors. Although I don't have any of their drills, and I do have a CT MIDI dust extractor, but I'm also going to try this with my shop vac. So we'll take this out in just a moment, but essentially what it is a tool that you can connect to the wall, to the ceiling, to the floor, and it's supposed to collect the majority of the dust. So let's take it out and take a look. Okay, so here it is. So it is made of pretty good quality plastic, really good quality plastic, and that's something that I've come to realize with Festool. So this is made in Germany, just like the majority of their products. Yeah, let's take a bit of a look at it. So it's not huge. Let's see how big it is. So across, about just under 3.5 inches from top to bottom along here. It's just under 6 inches, so not too big. And let's just walk through a little bit of the features with this. So it does have this drill sleeve at the top. So this is 0 to 12 millimeters, which is just under 1/2 inch. So if you have a 3/8 inch drill bit, so it can easily fit in there with a lot of room. When I'm working on concrete, I'm generally using 1/4 inch bits, so that fits really well. And I did want to just check with a 1/2 inch bit. So a 1/2 inch bit does fit in there pretty well with a little bit of room, although it probably would dig into the nickel a little bit. Although if you really need to use a 1/2 inch bit, I'm sure you could, even though they say that this is meant for up to 12 millimeters. So yeah. Let's take a bit more of a tour on this. So it does have these measurements on the side. So from 0 to 80 millimeters. I am not sure what these are for. I did look online to see if there's any use of these. I tried to draw straight line on both sides to see where they would intersect, and there seemed to be nothing significant. It has nothing to do with the center of this hole. So I'm not exactly sure what these measurements are for. If you know, please leave a comment in the comments below, and that will help out. And then at the bottom, this is where the dust or the hose from the vacuum or dust extractor will go in. And it has this nice rubber gasket. So really nice. It does say that it can take hoses or connectors that are 27 to 32 millimeters. So for me, with the 27 millimeter hose for my Festool dust extractor, that's perfect. And I do have an adapter that's around 1.25 inches, 1.125 inches, maybe. For my Ridgid shop vac, so we'll see if that works as well. But pretty nice connector there, and it does. We can take this off, so it's got this little notch over here, and here we can see the patented dual chamber system for clean drilling and dust extraction and suction at the same time. So if we look in here, you can see that this is where the nozzle would fit. Then on the top part, let's get this into focus. So that goes to the insert where your drill bit would be going. So that's going to be for the dust collection. And then if you look at the bottom, that leads to this chamber down here, which is what allows it to suction to the wall, to the ceiling, to the floor with pretty good pressure. So I did try this out just briefly. I haven't drilled a hole yet, but it holds really, really well. It does have a little outlet there just for it to maintain a certain level of pressure. And then it's got this really nice foam, so pretty wide, probably at least 1 centimeter, but really nice foam that goes around there. So it's supposed to work on relatively uneven surfaces and suction onto that, which is pretty cool. And this just goes back on easily like this. So let's take a look now at hose compatibility and see how that works. So first and foremost, let's just take the Festool hose. So this is the 27 millimeter end for my CT MIDI, and basically just insert that in there. You get a nice fit. So no surprise there, it's a perfect fit. Exactly what you'd expect from the same company that makes the extractor, the hose, and the nozzles. And this rubber gasket does come off on the hoses quite often, which is fine. Easily comes off and then goes back on. And I do have this old connector that I've been using on my Ridgid shop vac for quite a while. So it's got a little bit of a taper to it. The outside diameter is, I think it's 1 3/16. So right in between the 27 to 32 millimeters that Festool recommends. And if we put that in here, so it does hold. And actually it holds pretty well. So just to show you here, basically take the Ridgid shop vac. So this is a wider Ridgid shop vac. You may have smaller ones, and there. So that would connect in there. So later in the video, I'll test this just to see if it provides enough suction for it to hold against the wall. All right, so we're downstairs and we've got some painted drywall here. We've got some painted drywall ceiling up there, and we're going to try this on here. It is really nice to have this swivel, so if you wanted it either straight out or to the side, there's a lot of different positions you can do with this. It is pretty loud, so I'll turn the volume down on video, but yeah, so I'm going to use the Bluetooth here and we're going to turn it on and see how it sticks and holds to the drywall wall, and then I'll turn it off and try on the ceiling. So that held really, really well. Let's just try again and see if I can move it. So you can move it very slightly, and you would have probably seen that on video, although the suction's really strong. But with the pads on there, you don't have to worry about damage to your wall. But if you just need to dial it in absolutely perfectly, I mean, you could turn it off if you can easily, but you can move it probably within an inch relatively easily. So now let's try the ceiling. And on this one, we're gonna want to position the hose this way. That holds really, really well. Very impressed with that. So let's try a few other surfaces. All right, so here we have some painted concrete. So let's try on there. Holds really well. So let's try on a spot that has some of these, probably come up 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch spots. So yeah, it holds really well even on uneven. Now let's go outside and drill some holes. Another surface that I found just on my way to the garage is this really old and pretty gnarly wood paneling that we have in our house, and very significant ridges, not very even, and I was just curious to see if it would stick on that. It does, and yeah, there's some pretty significant waves in this, so pretty impressed. Okay, so we're gonna drill the hole now. I have the bit for my 1/4 inch tap cons that I often use in concrete blocks already in my hammer drill. Let's set it to hammer, and got my hole marked. So we're gonna put this and align it. It does have these nice little crosshairs on here to align it well. Then we're going to, we're gonna do the first one without the nozzle just to see how much dust is created. And then we'll do one with the nozzle to compare. So let's drill, and I've got a piece of MDF below this just to see how much dust comes down. All right, so we got that one drilled, and just to show you how much dust came down onto this MDF, and I did have this butted up against the wall like that. But you could just imagine if you were trying to drill a hole to hang something easily and dust fell behind this, you would never get to it. So it does result in a nice clean hole. There we go, with no nozzle. But let's compare, and let's just rotate this around, and we'll see what comes out when we have the nozzle in place. Okay, so I'm just gonna drill this one just beside this hole. So I'm gonna turn this on, I'm gonna drill the hole and tone down the sound on the video. Okay, so on the video, hopefully you saw, but no dust. Like, I would almost hazard to say, so there it is from before. I never like to deal with kind of 100%, but I'd say it easily collected 98% of the dust. Like, there's nothing. And even when I was drilling the hole, I couldn't tell if I was quite going into the concrete because I didn't see the dust coming out giving me that feedback. So very impressed with that. All right, before we wrap up, I just want to test the suction, and we're going to test it on this concrete, which is probably a great use case with the Ridgid chop vac. Okay, so we have the dust nozzle attached to our Ridgid chop vac via this adapter. So again, I am using a wide hose and long hose. This is a 16-foot hose on the Ridgid chop vac, so we'll see if that impacts the holding strength. And the connection on here, it's good, and like the seal is there. It's just not super strong. So where the Festool hose is much more malleable and lightweight and less rigid, this might be a little more stiff. Just knowing that, again, I'm dealing with a long hose, relatively heavy hose that doesn't bend. So let's see if it holds against this wall. All right, so it does hold. The only thing that I would note is that with this hose specifically, and there are other Ridgid shop vac hoses that work could work better. I know some of the automotive detailing ones or smaller ones could work best, but I did essentially have to support the hose and then drill. So I think it could still be a pretty worthy tool for those people, just with that exception. And I think that the quality of the dust collection is better than, and I know I've done this before, but where I'd hold the shop vac like that and then drill in, and it would collect maybe 70-80% of the dust, but you'd still get some of the stuff in the air and behind where you're working. So let's get to the final thoughts on this, and then we'll wrap it up. All right, so there you have a bit of a tour of the Festool drilling dust nozzle, as well as checking to see what types of surfaces it clamps onto, and really if they're even remotely level, it'll work just fine. So we checked some porous concrete, we checked some wood paneling, obviously drywall, painted drywall, plywood, it does work. Pretty much anything that is relatively flat will work with this. We also tested with the Ridgid chop vac, and I think that that was something that was very interesting where it does work. So this is a tool, an accessory that I've been interested in for a while, and Bosch sells one very similar that actually has a bigger opening, so you could probably get like Forstner bits and larger bits in there, but it's also a lot more expensive. So it's weird for Festool to kind of be a value option in this regard. And I would say that if you're into home improvement DIY where you're hanging a lot of things and you're tired of dust falling on the baseboard and then having to get the vacuum out anyways, this could work really well for you. And obviously with the Festool dust extractor, the fit is absolutely perfect and it holds really well with a lot of flexibility. The Ridgid chop vac, I did have to hold the hose a little bit, but overall I'm very impressed with this, especially for the price. So for 37 Canadian dollars or 23 US dollars in rough equivalents internationally, Very happy with this. It's something that I wish that I added to my arsenal even before having the Festool dust extractor, knowing that it does work with other vacuums. So for me, this is a major recommend. If I were to do a list of tools under $25 right now, knowing that this hits 23 US dollars, I'd absolutely add this to the list. So definitely recommend checking this out if you're interested. And yeah, let me know in the comments what you think, and thanks for watching.